WikiLeaks founder and journalist Julian Assange is now on the road to freedom. On Monday, the Justice Department, along with WikiLeaks, announced a plea agreement, which is equal to the amount of time that Julian Assange has already served in a London prison on charges of espionage. So that means after years, Assange will finally be able to return to his home of Australia. So look, in fact, Assange has been released from the UK's Belmarsh maximum security prison. According to WikiLeaks, he was granted bail by the High Court in London and released at Stansted Airport during the afternoon, where he boarded a plane and departed the UK, according to WikiLeaks in a Tuesday statement. Now, there is one thing left for him to do before he can go back home, and that is go to the plea hearing in order to get sentenced. So now that is actually happening outside the continental United States. So the reason that they're doing that is prosecutors asked the court to allow the hearing to happen in the Northern Mariana Islands. And it's because Assange is understandably really concerned about stepping foot in the United States, at least in the continental United States. He's like, I don't know about that, right? I don't trust them. And I can understand why. They only spent years trying to get him. In fact, you even had Hillary Clinton talking about, why don't we just drone him? Whoa, whoa. That is not the way you deal with leakers or whistleblowers, journalists, etc. But understand that that's how much the government hates Julian Assange. Okay, so now the Mariana Islands actually happens to be near Australia. So once he's done doing his plea agreement there, he can just hop right over, get back home. So, and then finally, for the most part, be safe. Okay, so now this is by the Biden DOJ, but it turns out the White House didn't have anything to do with it. That is despite the fact that Joe Biden, in recent months, had alluded to a possible deal that was pushed by Australian government officials to return him back home. Okay, so Malcolm Turnbull, who's the Prime Minister of Australia, he pushed really, really hard to get Assange to come back home, right? To be able to get him to come home. And so the US and the UK governments are like, yeah, okay, but we're still going to need him to cop a guilty plea. And so that's what happened. So yes, he had to plead guilty. Yes, it's a BS charge. It's a conspiracy to obtain classified information. And that would basically apply to any publisher in the history of journalism. That's what they're all trying to do. Yes, they're trying to obtain classified information so they could report on it if it is in the public's interest to hear about those reports. Now, some of the stuff that was released by WikiLeaks, remember, was from Chelsea Manning, who exposed literal war crimes. Again, this was footage that was of U.S. helicopters massacring innocent civilians. That is definitely something that is in the public interest because it showed what exactly our troops were doing in Iraq at the time, what they were doing in our name, which was committing mass murder of civilians as well as medical professionals trying to help wounded civilians. So that's horrifying, and unfortunately, the government, instead of going after war criminals that actually ordered this stuff, they went out after the journalists for releasing this stuff. Remember, this didn't have anything to do with the 2016, the emails, Hillary Clinton, whatever. It had nothing to do with that. The charges of the espionage charges were actually back from when he, got this information from Chelsea Manning. So that's what this goes back to. It had nothing to do with the 2016 election, okay? Nothing to do with the Hillary's emails, right? Hillary's just salty about it and was like, I don't know, we should drone him. Really? Really? Now, look, the government, of course, wanted to keep that stuff classified because there's always stuff the government wants to keep secret from, average people, right? The misdeeds that they do, the things that either show them doing war crimes, horrible things, terrible experiments that they had done in the past, on black people specifically. And you also had, again, the war crimes and things that might embarrass the politicians. Yeah, they're going to want to keep that stuff secret. That's why it's important to have whistleblowers. That's why it's important to have journalists. And that's what Assange was doing in his capacity as a journalist. And of course, journalists, especially ones that expose these kind of secrets, make enemies, very powerful enemies. Okay? And that's what happened here. So, yes, they tried to keep this stuff classified to avoid backlash. Thankfully, he released that. Now, his charges, again, he had to do a literal guilty plea for doing journalism, okay, and trying to hold our government accountable. That's pretty messed up at the end of the day. But, look, they knew what they were doing was wrong in going after him consistently. I'm talking about the government, right? But at the end of the day, they had to save face. That's why they came to him with a plea deal, okay? And there was a lot of pressure, intense pressure from journalists, journalistic organizations, along with different countries. You had Australia, as I mentioned, that was approaching it. Scotland definitely, tried to exert pressure in having him, released, and so many others that were pushing and saying, please, for the love of God, he's free Assange already. Whatever crimes you say that he had committed, this or outside of this, he's already paid the price. He's already spent so many years trapped, not only in an embassy, but then in a UK prison. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. And so finally, guilty plea or not, he's finally free. And there is at least one injustice that has finally been resolved as a result of this plea deal. So, yeah, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it for what it is. It is a win, even though he had to admit to a BS charge, and that could have reverberations down the line for any more whistleblowers, people who are trying to expose the bad, the nasty stuff that the government is doing. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.